Hello Templars, and welcome back to my office. Today, I've had a number of questions from people in the last month or so saying, well, how much do authors earn then? There was someone recently saying, you're a highly successful author, so obviously you're earning very well. You ought to reward yourself with a pen or something. I do remember some years ago I went to a talk in Brescia in Italy, which was a brilliant little event. The Italians are very welcoming. They'll give you a hotel, they'll tell you to bring your family along as well, and then all food is paid for. They'll cover the cost of your drinks, everything. It was wonderful. And I went there and I met a really nice guy who was just 50. He was a little bit older than me. I think he was a year or so older than me. And his name was Thomas Egerland. He came from one of the Scandinavian countries, I'm not sure which. I think it might have been Norway. But we were chatting and he had admitted he'd just had his 50th birthday, so he'd bought himself a special present. And when I asked him what the present was, it was a Ferrari. And I thought, that's really not bad. But the simple fact is that the country that he lived in was not an English-speaking country, so when Amazon took over, it didn't have too much of an impact on him and his colleagues. They still earned full whack from the sales of their books. And people, I think, very often assume that all authors are earning that sort of huge amount of money so they can afford to fritter away a little bit on a Ferrari. So I thought today I would just explain a little bit about incomes and how I started, because I think it's worthwhile. When I started, the cost of a paperback was about £5.99, and when I sold a paperback I was paid 7.5% as a royalty. So for every paperback I sold that went through a bookshop or anywhere in the UK, I would get about 42 pennies of that £5.99 coming back into my pocket. And agents took 10% in those days, so of the 42p I lost 4p to my agent, so I still got a reasonable sum of money. That all changed with two things. The first was the end of price protection for the book industry, so supermarkets and other firms could discount the price of books. The other thing that happened was that ebooks and Amazon, actually not ebooks, it was just Amazon, came on the market. And Amazon started squeezing the prices down. Every time they wanted to boost their sales, what they would do was they would demand from publishers that discounts offered to them were increased. And they kept increasing those demands, and every year what they would do was they would have a negotiating round with all the publishers in the UK and America, and during those negotiations, as they called them, they would demand ever larger discounts, and they would take one publisher at a time and they would nail that publisher to the floor and demand a huge discount from that one publisher, and then they would use that as a boilerplate and tell all other publishers, this is what Simon & Schuster or Headline or Orion are giving us, you have to match it. If you don't match it, we'll take your ability to sell books off Amazon. And they did this several times. I can't remember who the first publisher was that balked at this, but certainly my own publisher's Headline balked at one stage. And the thing that happened immediately was Amazon took away the buying button for every single one of the Hachette books that were on Amazon at the time. So all of a sudden, all of my books lost the buy button. I lost 6 months worth of income because Amazon was negotiating. Basically, Amazon was blackmailing each publisher in line, forcing them to accept Amazon's terms, whether the publishers liked it or not. So we had that happen for some years, and I'm not sure exactly when it was, but basically Amazon finally got down to an 80% discount demand from all publishers. I know that because I see it in the royalty statements. If I go through my royalty statements, I can see how much money I was paid, what the book price is, and so I can see what the discount structure was. That meant the publishers couldn't afford to pay a 7.5% royalty to me, because losing 80% of their sales, they couldn't survive as businesses with losing another 7.5% to the author. So the author's arrangement became, instead of 7.5% of the cover price of the book, it reduced to 7.5% of net receipts to the publisher. If the publisher only gets 20% of the cover price of the book, then 7.5% of that 20% goes to the author. Put that into realistic terms, it means that nowadays book prices are £8.99, and of that, per sale, I get about 12 to 13 pennies. So although the book price has increased from effectively £6 to £9, book price has increased 50%, the author income has reduced by 75%, which is painful. And the sad fact is that out of all the authors I know, I am one of the only authors who is still reliant on his book sales for total income. I do still get some sales from the backlist, but that's an ever decreasing amount, because the trouble is Amazon drives sales. You know that at the bottom of your page with Amazon it'll say you may like this title. Those things aren't just miraculously appearing, they're appearing because they will have hit a certain number of 5-star ratings on Amazon's algorithms. They'll have a number of people writing in and giving positive reviews. All that kind of thing bumps up the algorithm and boosts the amount that Amazon will promote that book for other people. Now, the trouble that I've got, of course, is I've got 43 published books now, and so the number of people seeing, for example, The Last Templar is ever reducing, because it's not a brand new book. It's not being pushed extensively on the internet. I do what I can. Canelo, the latest publisher, does what it can, but it's still not getting to that mysterious but really important breakpoint where the algorithms from Amazon kick in and start pushing the book to all and sundry. I wish it would happen, but it doesn't. So the only thing really for an author to do nowadays, as I am, is to try to maintain common sense approaches by trying to push books with regular Twitter, social media promotions and so on, and also to hope that every now and again you'll get some sort of a kick with a different idea for a new series. So I'm currently finishing Blackjack Book 6. That's going very nicely, but I'm also thinking about what's going to come next. The first thing that's going to come next is I'm going to edit a book I wrote back in 1995. I have mentioned this before. I apologise for those who have already heard it, but there are new viewers who may not have seen this. But the Blackjack books are going very well. The book I wrote back in 1994 in February was a book on how to get yourself a job if you find yourself unemployed. Now, I find that to be a very interesting idea now, because so many people are suffering from either being made redundant or they're going to be made redundant very soon. There's a lot of people who will need help trying to find some jobs. So that is part of my plan, is to try to get a good book out to help people, motivate them, and try to help them either get new jobs or, frankly, to set up their own business. Now, I mentioned Blackjack 6. Blackjack 5, which is Death Comes Hot, I've still got 2 copies of that. If anybody is interested in a copy, I would be happy to sign it and post it off to you. I'll charge less than the cover price of the book. I've got 2 reviews here, which is why I'm looking away from the camera. One is Publishers Weekly, where it says diverting fifth outing for Jack Blackjack. After 2019's The Dead Don't Wait, Jack, a cut-personed rogue in 16th century London, tries unsuccessfully to evade an unwelcome visitor. And it finishes up. The main draw is High-Spirited Jack with his Bertie Woosterish commentary. Oh, I don't mind that. I'm quite happy if he was like Bertie Wooster. I don't know whether you have ever experienced such a sensation. There's something particularly unpleasant about being brought up short by a length of steel at the Adam's apple. Fans of offbeat Tudor mysteries will clamour for more, they say. I think that's very right too, as they should. The other one is from Kirkus Reviews. That was Publishers Weekly. Kirkus Reviews say a maladroit assassin leaves a trail of destruction in his wake. Fairly long paragraph, finishing up with plenty of historical detail, loads of twists and turns, and a hilarious tale of criminal ineptitude. Those are two of the best reviews I've had in many a long year, so I'm going to stick them everywhere I can think of, basically. But the nice thing is, the Blackjack books do seem to be getting quite an audience. The only sad thing is they're with Seven House, and Seven House doesn't have a massive marketing team, and they tend not to sell their books to put onto bookshelves. They're mostly electronic versions of books and a 1,000 book print run that goes straight into libraries and doesn't go anywhere else, which is a pain. So as I say, if you're interested in a copy, let me know, because I have got a few. Right, next thing I was going to mention was what other things I'm looking at for the future. Well, there's two interesting things here that I am going to be trying to work through. One is, on my YouTube channel, I've got a guy, Richard Barnes, who has been very, very helpful in terms of providing me with inks and other things for me to review. Lovely bloke, really nice guy. And he suggested, why don't I set up a pen pal club, so that on YouTube people who are really interested in pens, inks, writing and so on could form a cohesive group for writing to each other and trying to sort things out. And I thought, that's interesting. But then I hit on this same flaming problem, which is that if I have a lot of people who want to join a pen club like that from Australia, America, wherever, the postage for me is going to be hideously expensive. Each individual pen pal group will have to pay for a stamp or two. I'll have to pay for a stamp or two to many, many people. So I thought, that's interesting, but with 6,000 followers on YouTube, all of them obviously are a self-selecting group who are interested in what I witter on about. That means it could be quite expensive for me. So I thought possibly I'll need to have some kind of charging structure. I did think that with YouTube you can set up clubs or groups, or I forget what they call them now, within YouTube, so that you can have this kind of arrangement where people can contact you and have nice chats. But apparently you've got to have a minimum of 30,000 followers on YouTube before you can do that. I've got 6,000, which I think is pretty incredible. I mean, 6,000 people who are that interested in writing with pen and ink. That's a lot of people. That's a lot more than I'd have anticipated. But even so, I think that could be quite interesting. So if you're interested in that, please do nip over to the YouTube channel. It's called Writerly Witterings, and you'll see my horrible mugshot there. And I do just talk about fountain pens, paper, inks, and everything to do with stationery. On top of that, I also started thinking about mentoring. Now, some years ago, you may know, I was, I forget what it's called, but I was a part of the fellowship scheme within the Royal Literary Fund. Now, the Royal Literary Fund is a great organisation that exists solely to help people like me, writers who have hit hard times. It's been going since the 1700s because writers regularly hit hard times. But what they do is they provide authors like me with a basic kind of income, which is about 50% of the national average wage, and send us into places like Exeter University, Oxford University, Plymouth University, any university up and down the country, to help students who are finding problems communicating with their essays, theses, any kind of writing whatsoever they're doing, authors and poets like me will be sent in to go and just help them free of charge, because all of the payments come from the Royal Literary Fund. And it's great because it's absolutely confidential. I was not allowed to discuss any student with anyone. I could suggest to the student that they might go to seek psychiatric support if necessary, whatever it might be. I'm sure there's a lot of kids who will be needing that right now with COVID, but I couldn't discuss it. Now, I was talking to a friend of mine, Angus Donald, not that long ago, and apparently he's joined a group where he is providing mentoring for 2 hours a month to a number of people who are keen on learning more about writing. And I thought, well, I don't need to go through a company. He's working with a company that charges £200 a month. I thought, that's a ridiculous sum of money for anybody who's aspiring to be a writer. But I thought, if I could get 2 or 3 people and have them paying £100 a month, that would be equivalent to several days' work, which I could help people going through their writing with. So I'm considering that. What do you think? Do you think that would be something that would be best put on Patreon, or would it be something that I should just do off my own bat, going through YouTube perhaps, or going through some other channel? It's a very interesting concept. I like the idea. I'm a bit nervous about the idea of losing more days per month, because YouTube takes up quite a lot of time already, and I have got a book to write urgently. But let me know what you think. I'll be interested in your views. And that was the main stuff I wanted to talk about. I am currently going through, because I had to do the talk, the Agatha Christie talk last, whenever it was. I hope you enjoyed that presentation, by the way. I put it out last week for all of the vintners, so hopefully you should all have seen a copy if you wanted to. Very interesting. It was a good project writing that up. It was fun. But I've completely lost my train of thought now. I shouldn't have mentioned that. So I'm just going to say thanks a lot for your patronage, as always. Do please let me know if you've got any comments, or if you just want to chat about anything I've spoken about today. I'd be delighted to hear from you, and I'll look forward to speaking to you next time around. For those of you who are scavengers, next week I'll be talking in response to some very interesting questions from Omar, who would like to know more about. Here we go. He said that he would like to see a video of my typical daily writing routine. No problem with that. I think that might be something I could put out as next month's Templars talk. The other thing he wanted was much more of assistance with how he is trying to write. And so he's going to provide me, I think, with random pictures of people, or I'm going to find some random pictures of people and then talk about them and see how they inspire me in terms of trying to think up a story. I think I'll pick some people, because I could probably pick some interesting ones off Google and Flickr. Right, so I hope that was interesting. Thanks a lot for watching, and for now I'm going to go, because I've got 2 large sourdough loaves waiting in a basin out there, which need to be formed, ready to go in the oven. Exciting life being an author. Thanks a lot for watching, and speak to you soon. Take care.